My name is Cheryl Harris. On January 7th, I arrived late to the Civil Service Commission meeting and handed a letter to Micki Callahan in hopes of getting justice and righting the wrongs perpetrated on me. I now turn to the Civil Service Commission for dire help. I'm here today because I've been wrongfully terminated by San Francisco General Hospital. I seek justice and to be made whole. I want what was unlawfully taken from me, my livelihood, my profession, and my dignity. I want my position back with back pay. I'm a competent nurse who has a good record working for DPH for the past 8+ years. I do not have any negative marks on my employment record. I pride myself in my work, and one of the greatest compliments came from a homeless African-American patient who said to me, "I can tell you love your job." Although I have been working as a per diem RN, I still have the right to a safe working environment where I'm not retaliated against for speaking up about discrimination and unsafe work practices that affect patient care. I was targeted and terminated on August 9th, 2018 without due process. I would like to note SFGH is undergoing investigation for understaffing at this time, so releasing a competent employee is senseless. Even more senseless is that I am not deemed safe to work at SFGH. However, I can work elsewhere in DPH without restriction. I was also not reported to the state. Why? I'm still not working after 6 months, although Karen Hill of HR told me she would help, but that I would never work for DPH again if I made my situation known. I acknowledge that as a threat. The reason for my termination is that administration, HR, and management has supported a racist and biased workplace that promotes a toxic work environment that includes bullying, targeting, retaliation, and discrimination, where white employees, especially male, are given favor over non-whites. For example, I was investigated for a lab draw missed with no harm done in April, while a white male counterpart missed a lab with harm done and not investigated. In reality, labs get missed daily for numerous reasons. My manager used that information to find a reason to release me. I was released without restrictions for my documentation and medication error. However, no one ever approached me about these practices that were fabricated to support retaliation. I was asked not to come into work on August 3rd without reason and met in HR on August 9th, 2018 and released. Why? It is no coincidence that my manager has been accused of racism and unfair treatment based on race and sex specifically, favorable to whites and males. The week I was asked not to come into work, I was advocating for patients and also staff to complete online survey released by the SFGH Equity Committee on July 30th, 2018 about workplace equity. My manager, who has been cited to HR multiple times for racism and unfair treatment based on race ethnicity, wanted damage control. Spring of 2017, administration was to hold a mediation for the unit due to poor morale as a result of the same toxic work environment documented by other staff on the unit. Administration, HR, and the union are aware of the racist and retaliatory activity on my unit where I was released. That is why I'm standing before you in dismay and seeking justice. I know my time is up. I do have this to submit. It's a long story.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Thornton, and I currently work for the Department of Public Health. My public comment today is about the performance appraisals and the civil service reform guide that I guess the city put out in 2008. And it talks about performance reviews. Currently, I work for the Department of Public Health. We're going through a reorganization. And for many years, I've said that I was working out of class. And so now it has been, through the reorganization, it has been discovered that my classification, many of us have been supervising people and working out of class since the beginning of our jobs in 1995. Yet we've tried many times to file out of class. I raised this through my performance appraisal many times with my supervisor that there was falsification of duties. I went to the whistleblower hotline about falsification of duties in my work performance and my performance appraisal. I rebutted it several times, but yet the only thing happened to me is that I was retaliated, discriminated by the Department of Public Health. I went to DHR about this several times about my performance appraisal and my duties being falsified. So I don't see how 25 years later that I'm told that we were working out of class and that all we can be compensated for is 45 days and 5%. This is an outrage. It's discrimination, it's theft, it's wrongdoing by the city and county of San Francisco. I need somebody to look in my employee file and tell me why after complaining many times and coming here proving that I was working out of class, that I will not be compensated for the work that I did. Thank you.
Thomas Duda, and I am the exam analyst for the Combined Promotive and Entrance, Class 2593, Health Program Coordinator 3, class-based test administered by the Department of Public Health. At issue today in this appeal are two questions. One, did we deny a reasonable accommodation to the appellant for the makeup exam held on Monday, October 22nd, 2018? And two, should we now grant a retest to the appellant? We conclude that the answer to these questions is no, based on the findings of our staff report, which I will briefly summarize now. The job announcement includes information about reasonable accommodation procedures in a manner consistent with DHR guidelines. Invitations for this exam asked the appellant to contact the exam analyst if requesting a reasonable accommodation. Despite this notice regarding our reasonable accommodation procedures, the appellant did not request an accommodation before or during the test. The appellant did bring a magnifying glass to the test site, requested to use it, and immediately received permission to do so. No reasonable accommodation form was completed, as we do not require a form for reading glasses or corrective lenses. After completing the test, the appellant inquired about reasonable accommodation procedures, but only for future tests. The appellant left the testing room with 46 minutes of time remaining and did not request an accommodation until after the test. Simply put, we cannot provide accommodations that are not requested. Therefore, to ensure the consistency of our process and the validity of this exam, we ask the Commission to deny the appeal and to adopt the report. Do you have any questions? Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cheryl Thornton, and I'm appealing the decision made about the reasonable accommodation. On October 2nd, I believe, I found out that the examination had been given and I had not been notified about the examination. So I contacted Mr. Duda, the analyst. On October 3rd, I believe he said, congratulations, you're invited to take the makeup multiple choice exam for the 2593 coordinator on Monday, October 22nd at 8:15. It also said on the notice that the last day to apply for a reasonable accommodation was October 1st. Well, he contacted me and sent me this letter October 3rd. It was already expired. So I just really didn't know what to do. And so when I went to the examination, because I have an issue with my eyes and I needed rest breaks, he's at the beginning of the examination, Mr. Duda explained to all of us taking the test, the makeup test, that if we wanted to protest, we had to protest at the end of the examination. So I took that, I just said, okay, well, let me see what I can do with this examination. So I did take it, and I did finish before the time allotted expired. But I explained to him what was going on, and so he said that at that time, Mr. Duda said that I could take additional time if I needed it. And I explained to him the way that my accommodation worked is that I would need to take a few rest breaks in between. And to now have to go back and erase my Scantron, I believe that some of my answers would be thrown out as erroneous because it could pick when you erase on the Scantron, it could pick up, it could detect that you've already answered that answer. So that's not how the accommodation works. It works where you have rest breaks in between. So I guess what I'm really protesting today is the fact that on the examination letter, it said to apply for accommodation no later than October 1st. And I guess that was an error that he made, but yet he contacted me on October 3rd. So that's why I was appealing this decision today. And I have copies of the letter and the examination for all of you guys to see it. So thank you. Is there questions?
What I didn't understand is, could you go over your accommodation again, because you had additional time to go yet. And you had asked for an accommodation when you entered the exam room for having the magnifying glass. Could you not have mentioned that at the time?
Well, it wasn't that setting. When the classroom, we came in, we sat down, he went over the instructions, and then he said if there's a protest at the end of the examination. So, you know, I've been up here a few times, and I work for the Department of Public Health, and I've made allegations of discrimination and retaliation. It's very difficult to always be the person that has to stand up every time begging for your rights. And I just feel that I always have to have the light shining on me. I just feel like the process is never fair. I've been in my classification now for 28 years trying to get a promotion, and despite getting the necessary credentials, testing in the top 5, I have not gotten a promotion. I asked for an accommodation this time because of the situation that I'm facing in my workplace caused this situation in the first place. And so I was away from work, where it was I wouldn't have been, and I wouldn't have even needed an accommodation, but I was asking for an accommodation because of the harm that I received, and that I'm entitled to have an accommodation. And I think what happened is that Mr. Duda just made a mistake on the announcement, and that it's really hard for somebody who is suffering from a disability to have to always be the one knocking on somebody's door asking for their rights, and they should have their rights.
The difficulty I'm having is that you asked for the accommodation at the beginning, even though there was the letter with the incorrect date. When you arrived, you asked for one accommodation. I don't understand. And I understand the difficulty in always having to ask, but it would seem to me that you would also see, and I need to have some rest breaks too.
Well, I didn't see that bringing that object in was asking for an accommodation, because I didn't say, oh, I need an accommodation. It wasn't that I said, oh, I need an accommodation. When I had that, I pulled it out of my pocket. I said, is this okay for me to use? I just want to say that I did successfully make it onto the list, and from what I can see, I am reachable. But the point is that the analyst made an error and put the wrong date, and the onus is on, I feel, the HR. It's not on the person taking the test, and that's why I'm here today, because it did say October 1st, and when he contacted me for the makeup exam, it said October 3rd. It was October 3rd. It was too late. So I guess I'm here appealing on behalf of anybody else that has encountered this situation or will in the future.
So what kind of remedy are you suggesting then?
Well, the remedy was to take the examination again. That was the remedy, because I didn't know of what other remedy that could be offered to me, and how would you, I don't know how to remedy that. That's the only remedy I could think of.
But you're on the list and you're reachable.
Yeah, I'm reachable. I'm reachable. You know, I just want to say, had I done something like this in my job, I probably would have been written up for inattention to duty, because this is an issue. I mean, for other people that may have wanted to have an accommodation, and I'm saying that the analyst needs to take responsibility for this, And if nothing else, they just should send out an apology letter saying that they made an error.
Ms. Hatton, at
Yes.
the time of October 3rd, did you receive an email, a phone call, or what kind of correspondence did you receive past the point of October 1st when you should have received? Do you recall?
I contacted Mr. Judah to tell him that I had learned that the examination had been given and I had not been notified. So then he let me know on the telephone that there was a makeup examination, and then I received the email.
Or you didn't ask for, what is it?
Thomas Duda, Department of Public Health.
Thank you, Mr. Judah. What is the next 2593
So it's on our citywide class-based test exam plan. I don't have the exact date. It's an estimated quarter. So based on when this eligible list was adopted, I anticipate that to be before the end of this calendar year.
Thank you.
May I add something? This is Anna Viascas, Employment Services Director. I just wanted to just remind two things. I've reviewed the appeal, and there was a typo with the date. However, in the beginning, Ms. Denson did not give us the right email address. I also want to point out that the reasonable accommodation was not asked for, and that our normal testing procedures at the beginning of every exam talks about the ability to use the restroom or take breaks using their own time. So at that point in time, Ms. Denson could have pointed out that she wanted to use extra time. And again, she left 46 minutes early from the time of the exam.
Hi, Cheryl Thornton. I just want to point out that Ms. Bejas was not there at the testing. It did say no rest breaks would be given. We could ask to go to the bathroom, but it did clearly state no rest breaks. I did finish 46 minutes early, that's true. But that doesn't negate the fact of my accommodation. And I feel that this is discriminatory because even though yes, it's true that when I emailed my application, somehow the wrong, incorrect email address went in there. I did contact HR about the examination, and they did offer a makeup, and there was an error in what was listed as the last day for ADA accommodation. And to merely say that it was a typo, it wasn't a typo. Is what happened is when he went back to do the makeup, he just didn't correct the information. It was just an oversight, inattention to duty is what it was.